I'm Jessie Sage. I am the host of When We're Not Hustling. This is episode 4, Mary Muse After Party.
And I'm Emily Foster. I'm the producer of When We're Not Hustling. And it's my job to remind you that we're brought to you by assembly4.com and that we should encourage you to like and subscribe to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm supposed
Leave
to
us
say.
comments. Tell us what you think. We like that. Follow us on
Oh,
socials too. Not Hustling Pod
definitely.
on Twitter and Instagram. And Mary Muse
Mary
is
Muse.
lovely. She's a
So
piano
sweet.
player. This was the first one that we incorporated somebody else's music in.
It is. I know we haven't even talked about the music. My amazing husband plays
Yeah.
the guitar and sings the intro music, and he's
He wrote the
super.
song for our show.
He wrote it specifically for the show. Yeah. And I hadn't even, I'm gonna admit, I'm a jerk. I hadn't even thought of that. I hadn't even thought of writing something specific to the show and having the words be a part of it. I was,
Well,
when
most
you're like, oh,
podcasts
we
don't
need some
have
music, I'm
lyrics
like,
in their
right.
music.
And I was like, oh, I'll
Yeah.
just like, right, we'll make some sounds and it'll be fine. And so I told Benjamin, I was like, oh, like, we got this assignment. We can like make music for this podcast. And then I went on to the other 10,000 things we needed to do to get ready, like
Yeah.
learning how to use Audition and, all minor details. And in that time, and I think it was like a week, maybe
Yeah.
two from me telling him. And then he's like, oh, so I kind of played around with the idea and I kind of wrote this song and he sent it over. I sent it over to you. We're like, listen to it. It's so gorgeous and the whole thing. And it's like all
I
working.
know. And
like,
the lyrics
oh,
are perfect,
they're
everything.
so good. And
Yeah.
I'm like,
And his
my first
voice is
response was like,
good
babe,
at
I don't
everything.
know if lyrics fit in a podcast. And you're like, look, can't we just like have a place where I don't talk and we just listen to that? I'm like, well, I mean, no, it's telling us what to do, right? I mean,
I know, it's our show. We can do whatever we want.
so this tiny 2-minute clip that he made turned into like, oh, and he self-recorded and produced and has never recorded or produced anything.
Oh
I
my
ended up
gosh,
doing the
it's so
final
good.
production on it, but he did a lot of that. So it was just such a huge project. And he ends up with this amazing 2 minutes. You liked it so much and it fit the vibe so well
Yeah.
that same 2 minutes of music ended up being like, so I think it goes for like 5 or 10 minutes. Like I just like repeated it. So it's just behind everything.
Yeah,
He's like, well,
no,
if
I
I'd have
love
known
it.
that, I would have written a longer piece. I'm like, well,
No, it works though, actually. No, I think it works totally well.
it's
And
so good.
it's funny
And then
because I've had a bunch of people, like the first time they heard the song, say, "Oh, it has such an intimate vibe." And that is perfect. That's exactly what we wanted
it's so
because
perfect.
these are supposed to be
Like,
intimate conversations.
and they are. No,
Yeah.
and then we got to have Mary on, and it was so amazing because the way that the music had all worked out,
Hmm.
like instead of just being this little sting in the beginning, it became a really integral part of the whole introduction. So it
Yeah.
was so easy to be like, hey, Mary, got any music? And we're just able to put
Yeah.
them in there. And we have no idea what people are going to send with photos or
No.
music, or just like send your stuff, we'll work it in.
Yeah.
And
I mean, we didn't even know if she was a good piano player. We're
I
just
mean,
like,
you
I hadn't
assume,
heard you
but
play. Like, I'm just gonna
I don't
believe you
know.
that you play the piano. But
No,
she's
and
a
then
very good
just
piano player.
so good and just the sweetest expression and just the
Hmm.
loveliest choices. I had the hardest time picking between the two. I was like, I don't know which one to put behind some words, which one to put in the middle. I
Yeah.
probably agonized over this episode more than any of them because it was
Well,
another
you're a
musician.
musician.
And,
Yeah.
I wanted to do her justice. You had the same response. We actually re-recorded this one. This was
Yeah. Because
Mary's,
I
oh,
messed it
your
up.
mic. Your mic
My
was
mic was
not
bad
great.
and she sounded
Yeah,
great. And I was like, if she's going to go through the trouble of recording a song for us, two songs for
two
us,
songs.
and
Yeah.
having a mic that sounds wonderful and she has a very nice voice, I am not going to come on with this scratchy ass audio and
No,
ruin
but
her
I'm
whole
so glad we
thing.
did
Yeah.
because there was, there's something to an unprepared interview that's amazing. And because we're going
Yeah.
for intimacy and just being yourself,
Yeah.
it works most of the time. But Mary had touched on some ideas
Mm-hmm.
in her original one that she really fleshed out on
Yeah.
the second interview. So I feel like the
Yeah.
whole thing came out much, much better.
Yeah, it was
It
really
was great.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that was interesting about the interview is that Mary and I'm not a musician, but we both started our careers as teachers and teachers in high schools. Like that was my
Really
first
young
job.
looking teachers in high
Very
school.
young looking teachers in high school, both under 5'3", you know.
Right. Looking
And
like a student, trying to like,
yeah, with these like baby faces. I'm almost
yeah,
46, but I still have like a baby face. And
it's so good. I love
yeah.
it.
But yeah, I mean, I think that it was so interesting to talk to her about the challenges she had as a teacher and fitting into that role and leaving that and what like it was kind of healing for me to hear her say that she like mourned that because it
Yeah.
was a big identity shift for me too. Like I had worked many, many years thinking I was going into academia and I didn't talk about this in the podcast, but I had this experience where I left my PhD program and I was trying to figure out how to revamp my my turn a CV into a resume because now I need a
Mm,
job that's not in academia. And
right.
I went to the resource center at my university where the counselors are supposed to be able to help you do that, right? So I set
Hmm.
up an appointment, I go in, the woman who was helping me is reading over my CV. And I did 3 years of a theology master's degree, 4 years of a philosophy PhD. This was 7 years of like working toward this, not counting undergrad. And she started crying. And I didn't know why she was crying. And I looked at her and then I realized she's Dr. So and so because she has a PhD in a field that is not counseling. Um, and she was
Right.
like, you not that there's anything wrong with counseling, but she thought she was going to be faculty, and she was
Yeah.
like looking over all of my bylines and everything. And she was like, you're really good at this. Why are you leaving? And then she said to me, um, but not why are you leaving? Like she knows because it didn't land her
Right.
anything, but recognizing that this is a sad, difficult transition. And then she said to me, because when I left my PhD program, I had to leave. I got another master's degree, which is kind of superfluous, like, but they had to give me something for 4 years of being there.
Right.
And she's like, you got to take one of these like master's degrees off your resume. Just pretend like you didn't do it. And I was like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, why? And she was like, because they're not gonna, nobody's gonna
Because
want to hire you.
overqualified's a thing.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
not going to think you're going to want to stay. Let's just, and I'm like, what
Yeah.
am I going to say I've been doing? And she's like, I don't know, and it was this moment where I was like, this is a big deal, actually. Like, this is a big
Yeah.
deal. And I have to figure out how to land on my feet. And when Mary talked about the morning that she did when she left teaching, I was like, man, that's not like an experience just of mine. That there's
Yeah.
this is teaching is one of those like going harkening back to the first episode where we were talking about identity. Teaching
Hmm.
is one of those professions that isn't a job. It's like an
It's a
entire
master identity.
identity. It's a
Yeah,
yeah, and
absolutely. Well,
um
they're a marginalized community, right? And I think that
yeah,
that's like kind of harkening back to a lot of what
yeah,
we've been talking about here is like small communities, marginalized communities, they band together, like
yeah,
you're in or you're out.
yeah,
And the idea of leaving a marginalized community is always fraught. It's
yeah,
always fraught,
yeah. You're like, those
A
are my
few,
people. We all stay after school and
yeah,
work for 5 hours. It's dumb,
right.
but here we
Like,
are. Yeah,
or we're all sex workers.
yeah,
We all avoid cops and avoid,
yeah,
bad clients. And there is a certain like, oh, you're better than us now when you
yeah,
leave,
yeah.
communities. And I do
Right.
see that with teachers. And I think it's born of the necessity because we don't pay teachers enough.
No.
They're all like the
Yeah.
reason they're a marginalized community is because they're supposed to shape our entire world by
Yeah.
means of our young people. But then we
But they're
tell
not
them that they're
valued for
idiots
that.
and they're not valued and they
Yeah.
can't teach what they want to teach and they can't do this and they can't do that. And like,
Yeah.
like most things, I know how we got here. I'm not trying to criticize it, but yeah, I think that leaving the profession of academia, but
Yeah.
especially teaching,
Yeah.
especially on, the ground,
Yeah.
teaching like
Yeah.
elementary and high school, like ground war, like you're
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
boots on the ground kind of thing. Like that you're leaving them with less resources because you're leaving.
Right.
And that has resentment to it. That has, and you thought you were always going to be in. That was
Yeah,
going
and
to
that
be your
story that she
people.
told about finding the bag of letters from her students, that was so touching to me, even though she was like, that was a bad
Yeah.
class and they were forced to do that. But
Right, but
there's,
still.
but still, there's something about like you do touch people's lives.
Yeah.
And when you're a teacher, you still do hear from students who are like, remember things that you did. Um, and it just
I
shapes
mean,
everything.
aside from our parents,
Yeah.
teachers are probably the most influential people in our lives. Not every
Yeah.
one of them, but
Right. Yeah.
teachers,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
So it was really interesting to talk to her about leaving that and going into sex work. And even though like teachers are marginalized, it's still something that you can tell people I teach orchestra or I teach fourth grade or I teach seniors or
yeah,
whatever. And people will be like, oh, I know what that is. I've been in those
right.
grades. I know what that looks like. I can imagine that. And then
I had
going,
a teacher.
yeah.
Yeah,
Everybody knows what that is, but like
yeah,
going to like I'm a cam model or I run a TikTok channel or I'm a sex worker, like
right.
you move from being like intelligible to completely unintelligible.
Yeah,
And that is a big transition.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, legitimacy, right? You
Mhm.
lose that. Like,
Mhm. Mhm.
our society doesn't make room for, like, even now with like cam girls a known job.
Yeah.
A cam guy too, I'm sure
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
cam everything, but cam girl's a pretty
Yeah.
common one. And like still
Right.
it's looked down upon. It's, oh, well,
Right.
you're doing that until, right?
Right.
Well, I mean, it's a job that these people seem to enjoy doing, and there's a lot of flexibility and good pay. Like, until
Right.
what?
I know. I had a client this
Like,
weekend, a woman who was like, so like how long are you going to do this? And I was like, I don't
I
I
mean,
don't know. Till I die. I'm
how
not
long are
sure.
you going to do your job? I don't know.
This is what I
Till I
do
can
right now.
retire, I
So
guess.
I don't and I thought that that was interesting. I mean, she wasn't being mean at all. Like I'm not saying she
No,
was,
but
but
that's
she was,
really the assumption.
yeah,
I
but it's
do
like a
this.
stepping
Oh,
stone.
when is it going to stop?
Yeah.
Like, and it's like, well, what if it didn't?
But I mean, clients get older too. They can just get
You
older with me.
know?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like not
I don't
everybody wants a
know.
20-year-old. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Old people like sex too. I thought I'd just
Yeah.
do that.
Oh yeah.
I'm already here.
I know. I already built up this thing. I might as well just keep doing it.
Yeah. No, that
Yeah,
was
so I don't know. I thought it was really lovely and I thought it was so beautiful because she's been in sex work less time than I have, but she reminded me because I've now had my brands integrated for so long. I've been like um myself I've woven myself into my brand, and
right.
she's in the beginning processes of that. And it was nice to me to remember how fraught that felt. Like,
Right.
and for good reason. It's not that
Yeah.
like for very good reason. Like there's a lot of good reasons to not do what Mary and I have done, which is to say, oh, I'm the type of person who's a writer. I'm the type of person who plays piano, and let me share that part of myself with you. A lot
Right.
of sex workers don't do that. And I get that because for a couple different reasons. One for identity, but one for like, what do I want to save for myself? Like
Yeah.
not everything needs to be for public consumption. And I think that that's also something that you have to learn to navigate because sex workers are public figures. We are like,
Absolutely.
going throughout like history. In my book, I did some research on like the notion of whore, but like the word itself, like at one point meant like public woman, and
Yes.
there's something about this work that you like offer yourself to the community in a way
Yes.
that's very different than in the way that a performer does, or, but
Yes.
it has a
But I mean,
certain,
obviously more intimate too, people
yeah,
are not allowed to touch me when I'm playing guitar.
right.
You open up to an even deeper level of that, it's
Right. Yeah. And so I
and to
think
some
that,
degree I can resonate with that. I'm
yeah,
very intimate in my sharing when I'm singing, but I'm in a bubble. Like you're not.
yeah,
You're
yeah,
completely there. And
right.
and I think in another episode we talked a little bit about the level of presence that is
Yeah.
necessary when
Mm-hmm.
you're, doing that, and talk about a public service. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah. But I mean, I
everyone
think,
needs someone to just
yeah,
sit
but
there and be there for them.
right.
Like,
But
yeah,
this question of like is very interesting to me of like what is for public consumption, and this is
sure.
something that I've like wrestled with for a long time. So, and what I liked about what Mary was talking about is that there's pluses and minuses to doing it in both ways. So like
Right,
she is attracting people who like her because she's a musician, who can relate to that in some way, who are then seeing her as a more full person, but that also requires you to give more of yourself,
right.
and so that whole journey I think is a very like personal journey for every sex worker, and people make different decisions about how they want to do that, um but it's like listening to her and talking to her through this was like it made me remember like what that was like,
Yeah.
to
Because you've
just
you've completely integrated at this point. I
yeah,
mean, you
yeah,
with hardly even a tiniest little jump on
yeah,
Twitter, there's
yeah,
a connection to everything that you're doing. But,
right,
to a lesser degree, as a performer, that makes a lot of sense to me. Like,
yeah,
how much do I share? Do I tell my clients that I also perform publicly and
yeah,
allow people that I just know in a business sense and only know me as the person who's telling them how to control their brand and make it more unified? Do I let them come and watch me read poetry about how my mom makes me feel?
yeah, yeah.
It's like I
Yeah,
did, yes. In the end, I decided, yes, that's very much what I wanted to do. And every
right.
company that I've worked for has somehow ended up integrating very personal art of mine into the
Yeah.
business
Yeah.
ethos. And I it turns out I enjoy that.
Yeah.
But to a lesser
Yeah.
extent, I definitely understand that choice of like,
Yeah.
do I really want to say Bob from accounting in the audience? Like,
Yeah.
is that a choice I really want to make,
Yeah. Well, it's interesting
Like,
because like I've seen so like I follow sex work Twitter pretty and Twitter is the one place that sex workers
yeah,
can talk and be. And so like that's the place, even though I know Twitter's dying, but all of us are ride or die. So like
yeah,
we're
until
I,
there's somewhere else,
until there's somewhere else. And right
we
now
still got to hang out every day.
I haven't seen it yet, but like I follow that pretty closely and a lot of especially escorts because they see their clients in person and so they feel like they have to create bigger divides. A lot of them will put up tweets that say things like if you see me in public, no you didn't. And I'm like I
Mm,
totally get that. But if my
right.
clients saw me in person, they'd probably talk to me. Like
Yeah.
I run my business in a different way. Like I've had experiences where I'm standing with one client in line at a coffee shop and another client comes up and is like, "Hey, how are you doing?" And then I'm like,
Right.
"Oh." And then
Right.
I
I'm
wonder,
at work.
do these two know that they're probably know me the same way? I don't know. I'm not going to like
Who
say anything.
knows? Yeah.
But yeah, because that doesn't feel invasive to me, but it doesn't feel invasive to me because I do these podcasts, because like
Right.
I write for the paper in my own city, because I have this like presence. So I'm just like, yeah, this is what I do. Like,
Yeah.
you know who I am. Like, but I totally 100% respect the sex workers who are like, you saw me at the gym? No, you didn't.
No, you didn't.
We don't know
Yeah.
each
No,
other.
that I seriously considered that divide myself, with a lot
Yeah.
of different things where I even started playing music under a pseudonym just to kind of
Yeah.
keep it over there, you know.
Yeah.
But in the end, integration ended up working best for me too. But I have a lot of respect for that. I always
Yeah.
admired writers more than performers because, you know, even if you're Stephen King, you may not get recognized in the
Yeah.
street, unlike,
Mm.
you know, other types of
Yeah.
creators who are like
Yeah.
seen. But
Yeah.
in the end, it turns out, yeah, you can talk to me in the grocery store. It doesn't matter how you knew me.
Yeah. Right.
But I
Mhm.
understand that choice. Yeah, I
Right. I do
understand.
too. And I like the way that things have gone for me because I feel like I'm not like well situated to live. I'm not constitutionally capable of living a double life. It's very stressful, you know?
It's so much work
It's
to
so
keep
much
everything
work.
separate and like,
I just
are you
it's
just really self-aware? Well, I'm a little lazy.
I can't remember. I have ADHD. I can't remember what I
I
told
don't
people. I just
know.
have to tell the truth because otherwise I I can't.
Yeah, no, I play music under Emma Lee,
Yeah.
and it's actually incredibly helpful because I'm so forgetful. I know so many people at this point in my life that
Yeah, that if you just
someone
say
says,
like, "Oh,
"Hey,
I'm
Emma," I'm like, "Okay, music. I know this person
yeah.
through music."
Yeah, that's smart because it's like when it's all together,
It's
it sounds the
hard.
same.
You're like, "Hey,
Yeah.
hey,
I had a
you."
similar situation because Jessie is my real first name and my real last name is different. But I found that when I started doing public writing under my sex work name, it made it very easy because most people don't use last names. So if I was in a mixed space where like I knew people from one place and from another, it would be easy because they all called me Jessie and nobody knew
Right,
like what
right.
like it just worked out.
Yeah,
But I also was lucky in that like at the beginning I was like, okay, my parents gave me the most common name for my generation. Like I wasn't
nice.
particularly
I'm an
concerned at
Emily. Hey, yeah.
yeah, I wasn't particularly concerned at the beginning that people were going to be able to like find me by Jessica.
Right,
Everybody's
right.
Jessica that was born in between 75 and 85. So it's fine. You
Yeah.
know?
No, I was an early Emily, but there are hundreds of Emily Fosters in the world. It's been, I'm like,
yeah.
well, the anonymity is built in.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I think it's a very personal journey for everyone. And that's what I really liked about having Mary on is that I mean, first of all, she's just like charming and sweet, but also
Yes.
like she very much laid out for all sex workers like what is it like to grapple with these choices about how much to share and how much to keep to
Yeah.
yourself? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think like all of these conversations that, you know, I had no idea what to expect from these conversations when we started the show. I knew I was interested, but
Yeah.
I didn't know what the show was going to be for me.
Yeah.
Was it going to
Hmm.
be spectacle? Was it going to be human interest?
Yeah.
And what I think surprised me, I mean, it shouldn't. I am the biggest proponent of we're all people, we're all the same, but every single one of them ends up being a personal sort of like
Mm.
revelation.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's pulling out parts of me that I hadn't expected to encounter that day. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's ended up being a lot more of a personal experience than I expected it to. I did
Yeah.
expect to be an observer and I'm like, oh no, I'm in this. Oh, like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm feeling this, you know, like,
Turns out this is just a
like
human experience, not a sex
yeah.
worker experience, which is
Like,
actually like the point of the show, which is so
exactly.
interesting that that's like what's coming out for you and you're like now standing in for non-sex workers who encounter the
Yeah.
show, even though you like are making the show. But like
But no,
the
you know, it's
perspective
yeah,
is
I'm
yeah,
sure I can't have a unique perspective in being like, oh, it's a show about a job I don't do. It's
right.
going to be something interesting to look at, you know, and
Yeah.
then being like, oh, actually, this job is incredibly intimate and it's really bringing out a lot of ideas. I'm like, you know, like, oh, wait,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
having a personal thing here. Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
very human. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's
And
a
also, I love that Mary is, I don't know how to quite formulate this, but she talked about, you know, like all I'm doing is playing piano with a cute little, my tits out, and like this cute little thing, and not topless, just so we're clear, but
Yeah.
it is still social media. But there is something so sweet about, we're really told to not embrace our sexuality,
Right.
especially publicly,
Yeah.
and that's a lot of what sex work, that's why it exists,
Right.
because
Right.
we're not allowed to. And there was something very, very sweet about her
Yeah.
just being like, yeah, I get to
Yeah.
like do the piano thing, but not have to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Well,
and that's
that
why
was
it's not a very well formulated thought, but you know what
no,
I mean?
actually, that was
Like,
a really
there's
interesting part of what she was saying because I mean, so much of it was about integrating herself into her sex work. But what
right.
also I feel like was a byproduct of that was
Was
integrating sexuality into herself. Like it went in
yes.
both directions. So like the gift she
Right.
gave sex work was her music. The gift that sex work gave her was her sexuality. And
Yes.
that was really neat to me to see that.
Yeah. Like, why shouldn't
Yeah.
cute flirtation and beautiful Japanese classical pieces not be the same experience?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Like, yeah, no,
Right.
that's beautifully put. Yes,
Yeah. Yeah. I
that's
really liked
exactly
that.
it.
Yeah.
That, yeah, her, when I think of classical piano recitals, I don't think of cute, sexy. And
No. With
why,
like
that made
a
me
low
ask why. I'm
V.
like,
She's
wait a
like, I'm
minute.
wearing a low V and showing off
Yeah,
my
like
boobs
I
and
like
also
titties
playing.
too. And
Yeah.
I like why wouldn't I watch that while I listen to classical? What the hell?
Yeah.
Like, so plug
Right.
for Mary. I think that's a great thing to spend your time doing.
Yeah. She is very cute. Watch her play piano.
Definitely.
Yeah. And if you want
Oh,
to peek down her shirt, go ahead. She said it's okay.
she said it's all right. She was, consent is everything.
Yeah. That's a great note to end on. So I'm Jessie Sage. This is When We're Not Hustling After Party, and you do the
I'm
plugs.
Emily Foster. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.